The US President, Mr. Donald Trump, met the Russian President, Mr. Vladimir Putin, at Alaska in the United States the other day. Naturally, when a US President meets a Russian President, that would create headlines. Yesterday also that happened. It created headlines not just in the United States or Russia but globally. But apart from that, what else? Now, everybody knows that the meeting was held against the backdrop of ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict. How would one term the meeting? What was the outcome of the meeting? Being an Indian, I need to ask how significant was the meeting for India against the backdrop of Trump's Trump slapping tariffs on India for purchasing Russian oil. These are some of the questions that comes up when we discuss Trump's meeting with Vladimir Putin. But at the same time, we need to remember one more issue. The real stakeholder in the issue, that is Vladimir Zelensky, who is the president of Ukraine, was not present in the meeting. So, what is the significance of a meeting without Vladimir Zelensky? We need to analyze all those things. Let's try to do that impartially and based on the information available on the public domain. So, after the press conference, Mr. Donald Trump and Mr. Vladimir Zelensky interacted with the media, but they didn't take questions. They just said whatever they wanted to say and left the venue. As usual, Trump was at his bombastic best. He said some big things are going to happen. So this is the way he describes things. He always uses words like phrases like big things are going to happen, fantastic meeting, things like that he uses. He always uses goody words. So that was the usual rhetoric from Donald Trump. Putin said the meeting was constructive. He received a lot of gifts from, people from and officials from Alaska. Alaska was actually part of Russia once. It was the Emperor Tsar who sold Alaska to the United States. So there ends it. As I asked, where was Zelensky? Without Zelensky, what was the meaning of the meeting? So here, let's presume that Mr. Donald Trump and Mr. Vladimir Putin might have discussed things that matters more to the United States and Russia, not the interests of Ukraine. So now there is a widespread apprehension or fear that Trump may compromise the interests of Ukraine. He would make a deal. He would foist the deal on Vladimir Zelensky, and he would try to play the boss. In return, Russia will be willing to support a nomination of Trump to Nobel Peace Prize. Everybody is going to be happy. It's a win-win situation for both Russia and the United States. Who cares? Ukraine. Trump thinks about only equals. If you have to be in the good books of Mr. Donald Trump, you have to be, an influential person, a rich person, somewhat equal to the United States. Only then Trump will take you seriously. Otherwise, he will dictate terms. Generally, he could termed as a badass character, or he's a tough cookie. I don't want to be impolite. That is why I don't say he's a jerk. So this is the situation. This is the way Trump's diplomacy works. Yesterday also that was evident. Now if you analyze the current situation, Russia has actually conquered around 20% of the territory of Ukraine. Not many Western media or even Indian media have reported or have focused on this aspect. It's true, in between, many media have reported that, but nobody focuses on this issue. So, this is the most relevant issue. Just before the meeting, actually, the Russian army made further inroads into Ukraine. The day before the meeting, they conquered 110 square kilometer land of Ukraine. The media might have highlighted some of the, one-off acts of Ukraine, like destroying a couple of Russian bombers, some one-off drone attacks into Russian army bases, things like that have been reported very much or have been focused in international media. Right from the beginning, the international media have been trying to, project an image that this is going to be the Waterloo of Vladimir Putin, but never such a thing never had happened. Those were all creations, propaganda being publicized by the West, perhaps to pressurize Putin, or perhaps to move Russia's fronts away from that country. But I don't think that propaganda strategy has worked. So now what Putin is trying to do is that to conquer maximum area before a ceasefire is declared. Now Vladimir Putin has got very specific aims. He wants to conquer all those areas where Russian speaking people are in majority. He's doing that in East Donbass or other areas where he has got a vested interest, and he has succeeded in that to a great extent also. Of course, he has suffered huge manpower losses, but in a war it is not the losses that count. A war is decided on the basis of which country has achieved its goals. If you analyze on the basis of this principle, you would find that Russia is winning the war. Now, this is the situation. Actually, Vladimir Zelensky is in a dilemma. He cannot, dictate terms. He cannot even ask Donald Trump to discuss specific issues. On the one side, there is Donald Trump pressurizing him. On the other side, Putin is devastating his country. So this is the situation. Now, I think what would be the outcome? This question I had raised in the beginning. The outcome is going, perhaps I think the positive outcome of yesterday's war is that an announcement of ceasefire or cessation of hostilities is likely to happen in the coming days. Not because Donald Trump intervened in the issue, not because of any other factors, but just because Russia might have achieved their goals. That is why. So this is one important, point to be noted. If Russia agrees to a ceasefire, it means that they have achieved partly or to a great extent their own goals. I think this has happened. Around 20-25% of land of Ukraine will be lost. Another aspect would be the US would agree not to make Ukraine a member of NATO at least for a couple of years. So their membership issue will be freezed, and after that Russia will agree. So eventually Russia and the United States will not lose anything, but Ukraine is going to lose many things. The war was, many Western analysts and thinkers say, the war was one of the projects of the United States to surround Russia. Earlier, once when Britain was the biggest power in the world, when Britain controlled the world, they had initiated such a plan. This is, afterwards, the US is repeating the same plan in Europe. The US wants to contain Russia and their allies. That is why they are implementing sanctions against India. They are implementing, high tariffs on imports from China. So these are all strategies of the US. They have not fought a war, but the war has served their strategic interests. Now, what will What is US going to do? The US will intervene. The US will, take over the mineral wealth of Ukraine at a pittance. The Ukraine is going to get a pittance in return for their mineral wealth. US forces will be active in Ukraine in the guise of, excavation activities. Eventually, it would have been better for Vladimir Zelensky if he had negotiated a settlement with Vladimir Putin earlier and would not have gone to a war. This is my personal view. Now, what will be the the what is the interest, or what will be the consequence of the war from the Indian perspective? I think if the war ends, it will help India in a great way. I am not going to say that the US is going to repeal all the heavy tariffs they have implemented on Indian imports. Tariffs on Indian imports have to do many things, have to do with many things. But at the same time, as Donald Trump said yesterday, he may not implement the additional 25% tariff for oil import from Russia. So I am sure that the tariffs on Indian imports would be around 25 to 30%, because otherwise that would not be in the interest of the United States. If Trump implements a tariff something like 50% or 75% on Indian imports, it will backfire. It will harm the interests of the United States. So Trump is not going to do that. So Trump will implement a tariff of around 25 to 30%. Then from that point of view, I think it will serve India's interests to some extent. And anyway, end of a war is good for the whole world. If that is going to happen, then it's good for everybody in the world. But at the same time, we need to remember that the war will be a reminder to allies of the United States that the same fate is waiting for them if they go to a war believing or trusting the words of Donald Trump. They will have to suffer. They will lose their territory. The US will ask compensation in return for supporting them. So a war will only benefit the United States and not their allies. This is the hard lesson from this Trump-Putin meeting and the so-called conciliation or peace talks, whatever way you want to put it, do it. I'll be back with updates. Till then, goodbye.